They should have listened when Nova said, "I warned you." But bullies at Westwood High thought flipping a black girl's lunch was funny right up until the bat she mastered became the last sound they heard. In a cafeteria built on privilege and silence, one shove triggered a storm no one was ready for. Their mistake wasn't the mess they made, it was underestimating the girl who refused to stay quiet. What happened next shattered the school's hierarchy in minutes. The cafeteria at Westwood High pulsed like a living creature at lunchtime, hundreds of voices bouncing off tiled walls, sneakers squeaking across the polished floor, trays clattering with every new wave of students pouring in. Sunlight streamed through the long windows, slicing the room into bright, restless stripes. It was noise, chaos, and teenage indifference tangled into one. Yet somehow, in the middle of all that movement, Nova Jordan felt painfully still. She sat alone at the far corner table, the one closest to the exit, easy escape, minimum spotlight. Her braided hair framed a face that tried to look neutral, but her eyes kept scanning the room like she was measuring danger the way most students measured popularity. Every new school had its hierarchy. Every cafeteria had its predators. And Nova had learned long ago, predators can smell the new girl. She unwrapped her sandwich quietly, keeping her shoulders small, her breathing even. She wasn't afraid, just tired. Tired of moving schools, tired of new hallways with old problems, tired of pretending she didn't hear the whispers that always followed her. That was when Finn Archer walked in. The shift happened instantly. Conversations softened for half a beat, like the sound itself bowed when Finn and his crew passed through the doorway. Finn wore the orange and black varsity jacket that everyone recognized. His smirk, the kind that said, "Rules bend for him," arrived before he did. His friends trailed behind him, loud and careless, shoving each other, bumping into tables without apology. Nova didn't look up, but Finn did. His eyes locked onto her like he had been waiting for this moment, and his smirk sharpened into something uglier. "So that's the new honor student?" Finn scoffed loudly, letting his voice cut through the hallway of sound. Guess standards really did drop this year. A couple of his friends snorted. Someone at a nearby table covered their mouth. Most students didn't react at all, they just kept eating, pretending they didn't hear the racist edge curled inside Finn's words. Silence wasn't neutrality at Westwood. Silence was survival. Nova froze mid-bite. The comment wasn't unexpected. She had learned to sense these things the way other people sensed storms. What was unexpected was the sudden burn behind her ribs, not fear, not sadness. Something colder, clearer. She placed her sandwich down gently. Then she lifted her gaze and looked straight at Finn. No flinch, no apology, no shrinking. Just a stare, steady, unblinking, cutting through the space between them like a blade. The air around their table shifted. Even Finn's friends paused for half a second, surprised that the new girl didn't immediately fold the way most did under his cheap superiority. Something about Nova's stare didn't match her quiet posture. It held weight. History. Warning. Finn's smirk twitched. He wasn't expecting resistance, especially not from her, especially not today. Because unbeknownst to Nova, Finn's hostility wasn't random. It wasn't just racism, arrogance, or the thrill of humiliating someone new. No, this ran deeper. Nova had unknowingly taken something from Finn before even setting foot in Westwood. The top academic ranking, the title his younger sister, Haley Archer, had been promised. The spot Haley's mother had donated heavily to secure. To Finn, Nova wasn't just a girl eating alone. She was a threat, a disruption, a reminder that talent doesn't bow to privilege. And privileges never forgive humiliation. Nova's stare didn't speak, but its message was unmistakable. "Try me." Finn's jaw tightened. Something mean flickered behind his eyes, something that promised this wouldn't end here. And it didn't. Because in the next few minutes, the cafeteria would witness something far worse, and Finn would make the first move. The cafeteria didn't quiet down for Nova, but it didn't need to. The hostility in Finn's stare spread through the room like static, prickling along the backs of students who pretended not to notice. Nova kept her eyes on him for a fraction of a second more. then lowered her gaze, choosing to finish her lunch in peace. But Finn had already decided peace wasn't an option. With slow, deliberate steps, he cut through the maze of tables, his friends trailing him like shadows that enjoyed the chaos he created. A few students nudged each other, whispering, phones sliding discreetly onto recording mode. Everyone recognized the look on Finn's face. He was hunting. Nova kept her breathing steady as Finn stopped beside her table. She didn't greet him, didn't ask what he wanted. The silence she offered him was sharper than any insult. Finn hated it. "So, new girl," he said, tapping the edge of her tray with 2 fingers. "Didn't anyone teach you to sit at your level? Honor students usually pretend they don't belong here." Nova ignored him. That was his second mistake. With a sudden flick of his wrist fast enough to draw gasps but slow enough to show intention, Finn slammed his hand against the edge of her tray. The entire lunch flipped. A cascade of pasta, fruit, salad dressing, and milk erupted across Nova's shirt. The tray clattered to the ground, spinning on the tile like a dropped cymbal. Students jolted upright. Some screamed, some laughed, some angled their cameras for a better shot. The stain oozed down Nova's chest, warm and humiliating, but she didn't move. She didn't wipe it away. She didn't even blink. Finn leaned in, satisfied with the silence he mistook for defeat. "There," he said loudly, making sure the whole cafeteria could hear. "Now you look exactly like you belong." His friends burst into cruel laughter. 2 girls from the junior class covered their mouths, torn between shock and fascination. A group of boys from the basketball team muttered, "Damn!" before lifting their phones higher. Nova's jaw tightened, not with rage, with control. She inhaled once slow, deep, steady. The kind of breath people take when they've survived worse than this. The kind reserved for moments when the line between restraint and explosion becomes dangerously thin, Finn noticed. But he didn't understand. Nova finally stood, every movement calm enough to terrify the kids who were used to seeing victims fall apart. She looked at the food dripping from her shirt, looked at Finn, looked at the crowd. Then she said the words that froze the nearest table in place. "I warned you." It wasn't loud. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't trembling. It was promised. A murmur rippled through the cafeteria. Students leaned forward, phones capturing every second. Finn's grin faltered for half a beat before he forced it back. "What, you gonna cry?" he mocked. "Or do you need someone to clean you up?" Nova's eyes didn't leave his. Around them, notifications pinged. Videos of Finn flipping her lunch were already being uploaded. But seconds later, little red warnings appeared. Content removed. Video unavailable. Violation reported by school administration. Gasps spread. Someone whispered, "What? Already?" That was fast. Had begun. Someone was protecting Finn, pulling down the footage instantly, scrubbing the evidence before it could stain his reputation. But Finn didn't notice the digital panic, didn't hear the whispers, didn't see the confusion. He only saw Nova standing still quiet, still composed, still refusing to break. He mistook that silence for surrender, a fatal miscalculation. He laughed loud, confident, victorious. To him, this was over. He had embarrassed her, marked her, claimed the upper hand in front of the entire school. And so, believing he had won, Finn did what bullies always do when they think no one can touch them. He pushed even further. Because in his mind, if flipping her lunch didn't break her, there was something even crueler he could try next. The hallway leading from the cafeteria to the athletic wing was usually quiet after lunch, just a stretch of white tile and flickering fluorescent lights humming above empty trophy cases. But today, the silence felt staged, like the school itself was holding its breath. Nova walked steadily, her ruined shirt still clinging to her skin, her hands curled but controlled at her sides. Maya rushed up beside her, eyes wide, voice shaky. "Nova, just ignore him," she whispered. "Please, let it go." Nova didn't answer. Ignoring was supposed to be her strategy at Westwood. Keep quiet, stay low, finish the year. No fights, no headlines, no calls home. but the sound of footsteps behind them snapped that fragile plan in half. Finn and his friends spilled into the hallway, laughter echoing off the lockers like a pack of hyenas circling prey. The cafeteria humiliation wasn't enough for Finn, not when Nova refused to break. He wanted more. He wanted dominance. "Hey!" Finn barked, voice bouncing down the corridor. "I'm not done talking to you." Nova stopped walking but didn't turn. Maya grabbed her wrist, squeezing hard. "Nova, please. He's trying to bait you, don't give him what he wants." But Finn was already closing in, his crew blocking the hallway like a human barricade. They surrounded Nova and Maya with practiced ease, forcing them back toward the wall of windows overlooking the baseball field. Finn stepped forward until his shadow overlapped Nova's. "Look what you did," he sneered, pointing at his shoe. A smear of orange sauce clung to the white leather. "You ruined my Jordans." Nova exhaled once, slow and steady. Maya, terrified, stepped between them, hands up. "It was an accident. You shoved her tray." Finn jabbed a finger toward Maya's face. "Did I ask you?" His friends laughed, but the sound was thinner now, mocking, but nervous. Nova's stillness unnerved them. Bullies preferred obvious fear. Nova gave them nothing. Finn returned his attention to her. "Here's what's gonna happen," he said, crossing his arms. "You're gonna get on your knees and apologize for disrespecting me," Maya gasped as if punched. Nova didn't move, not a muscle. Her expression remained unreadable, but something behind her eyes sharpened. Finn smirked, mistaking her silence for hesitation. "What? Too proud? Or too stupid?" he taunted. "Maybe your old school let you get away with this. But here, we have rules." Maya's voice trembled as she leaned toward Nova, whispering urgently, "Nova, you promised your father. Don't do it here. Don't do what you did last time, please." Finn's smirk faded. "Last time," he repeated, suspicion flickering across his face. "What's that supposed to mean?" Nova still didn't speak, but Maya had already said too much, and the truth they tried to bury began rising like a tide. Nova wasn't just any transfer student. She wasn't just quiet, observant, or disciplined. She was the former state karate champion, undefeated for 3 years, trained by her father, a retired military instructor obsessed with discipline and self-defense. Known at her old school for putting 4 bullies in the hospital after they cornered her in a locker room, the district tried to cover it up. Her parents transferred her to avoid legal escalation. Her file was sealed. Her past was meant to stay buried. But Finn had just kicked the dirt off the grave. The hallway grew eerily still. Finn's friends shifted uneasily, sensing something was wrong. The air around Nova felt heavier, tighter, as if the temperature had dropped. Even Maya, still holding Nova's wrist, felt the tremor beneath Nova's skin, the quiet storm gathering strength. Finn took a step closer, shoving at Nova's shoulder. "I said kneel." Nova lifted her eyes to his. There was no fear in them. No submission. Just a warning he was too arrogant to understand. Maya whispered, voice cracking, "Nova, please, don't." But the moment had already shifted. Finn had crossed a line he didn't know existed, a line Nova had sworn to avoid, but one that, once breached, became impossible to retreat from. And without realizing it, Finn had just pushed the story and his own fate past the point of no return. The doors to the baseball training wing slammed open as Finn stormed through, shoving past Nova and Maya as if ownership of the hallway belonged to him by birthright. The sunlight outside hit the polished concrete, reflecting off the metal lockers and casting long, sharp shadows across the entrance. The field beyond was empty. Practice wouldn't start for another hour, but a rack of training equipment sat just inside the doorway. Bats, helmets, weighted gloves, enough tools to arm a small army of teenage egos. Finn strutted toward the rack like it was his personal arsenal. Nova followed slowly, her expression still unreadable, Maya trailing behind her like a shadow whispering prayers no one could hear. Finn grabbed a baseball bat, black metal, perfectly balanced, the grip worn from countless practices. He lifted it with a flourish, turning back toward Nova with a grin that had forgotten caution. "You know," he said, tapping the bat against his palm. Girls like you should really learn your place. Nova didn't answer. Her silence was becoming louder than his voice. Finn's friends exchanged glances, unsure whether to laugh or step back. Something felt off. The air around Nova seemed heavier, charged, like the atmosphere before lightning splits the sky. But Finn thrived on an audience, not awareness. He swung the bat down against the concrete floor. Clang. The sound exploded through the hallway, metal ringing, echo bouncing, dust drifting down from the rafters. Maya flinched. Several baseball players emerging from the practice room froze mid-step. Finn smirked at the reaction. He liked fear. He liked power. But Nova didn't flinch, not even a blink. That irritated him more than anything. You think you're tough? He taunted, stepping closer. Think being the new golden girl means you get to talk back? Newsflash. You're nothing here. You're just… He dropped the bat to his side, leaned in, and whispered a slur so vile, so dripping with racist venom, that even his friends recoiled. Maya gasped, hand flying to her mouth. One of the baseball players muttered, "Dude, what the hell?" For a moment, just a breath, the world stopped. Finn had crossed a line he didn't even see. When Nova looked up, her eyes were not the same. Gone was the calm, controlled restraint. Gone was the quiet endurance. In its place was something storm-like, cold, focused, and terrifyingly still. The kind of expression that didn't warn of violence. It promised it. Maya grabbed Nova's arm. "Nova, don't. Please, don't. He's not worth it." You promised your dad, but Nova wasn't hearing her anymore. Because the bat Finn had picked up, the one he was waving arrogantly like a toy, wasn't random. It was her father's training bat. Custom grip. Military-grade alloy. The initials M.J. carved subtly near the handle. Her father had donated equipment to several school programs years ago, including Westwood's athletic department. Nova recognized the bat instantly, the weight, the balance, the sound it made when slammed against concrete. Her father had taught her to fight with that exact model. Taught her forms, strikes, counters, drilled them until they lived in her bones. Finn had no idea he had just armed her with the one weapon she wielded better than anyone in the state. Maya saw the recognition flash through Nova's eyes. "Oh God," she whispered. "Finn, don't you get it? You just gave her an advantage." But Finn wasn't listening. He was too busy enjoying his imaginary dominance. "Come on," he mocked. "Say something. Hit me. Do it. I dare you." Nova stepped closer. Her movements were measured, predatory. Her gaze locked onto the bat, not Finn. That alone sent a ripple of unease through the players watching from a distance. Finn, oblivious, lifted the bat again in mock threat. Nova's voice dropped quiet, level, edged with something ancient and dangerous. "You shouldn't have touched that," Finn scoffed. "Or what?" Nova's eyes narrowed. The storm was no longer coming. It was already here, and in that moment, without understanding the magnitude of his mistake, Finn had handed Nova the very weapon and the very reason she needed to end his reign once and for all. The double doors of the cafeteria burst open as a wave of students spilled into the hallway. Drawn by the echo of metal slamming against concrete, word traveled fast at Westwood High. Finn Archer was picking a fight with the new girl, and she wasn't backing down. Dozens of students crowded the doorway, their faces lit with a mix of excitement, dread, and the irresistible pull of a drama they knew would go viral before last period. Nova stood in the center of the hallway, outside the baseball wing, the sunlight cutting across her shoulders. Finn hovered just feet away, bat in hand, sneer on his lips, yet something in his posture betrayed uncertainty. His confidence wavered, but his pride wouldn't let him step back. The baseball team watched from behind him, shifting uneasily. Maya stood near Nova, frozen in fear, and the crowd behind them grew thicker, phones rising like an audience holding up torches at a gladiator match. Finn took a step closer, then another. "Last chance," he snarled. "Kneel." Nova didn't. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe, and it pushed Finn over the edge. With a grunt, he shoved her, hard. It was meant to be the final humiliation, the push that made her stumble, fall, break. But instead, it triggered the exact wrong instinct in the exact wrong person. The moment Finn's hand hit her shoulder, the world shrank to a pinpoint. 3 seconds. That's all it took. Second 1. Nova twisted her body, catching her balance with impossible precision. Her hand snapped toward the bat, fingers closing around the grip with the certainty of someone who had done it 1,000 times in practice. Finn's eyes widened. He felt the shift in control before he understood it. Second 2. Nova ripped the bat from his hand with a single, fluid motion. The kind of motion that doesn't come from instinct but training, discipline, muscle memory honed through repetition and combat drills. The crowd gasped as Finn stumbled forward, suddenly empty-handed. Maya covered her mouth. The baseball players froze. Someone whispered, "Holy shit!" Second 3. Nova stepped back, raising the bat slightly not to strike, but to test the weight, the balance, the feel. Her movements were clean, sharp, almost elegant. Then came the sound, whoosh. The bat sliced through the air in a clean, horizontal arc, fast enough to stir the hair of the students nearest to her. The metallic hum vibrated through the hallway, sending chills up every spine. It wasn't the sound of violence. It was the sound of warning, a promise that she could end this at any moment she chose. Finn's face drained of color. He had no idea she could move like that. No idea she could disarm him. No idea the bat he grabbed was practically an extension of her own body. But someone else did. High above them, mounted in the corner, the hallway security camera recorded everything, every shove, every insult, every moment. Finn escalated the confrontation, and later, when the students demanded justice, the footage would mysteriously malfunction, and the principal would shrug, claiming the system had been failing for weeks. A lie, a cover-up, another shield for the Archer family. But right now, no one knew that yet. Right now, all they knew was that Nova Jordan Quiet, new, alone had just taken the school's most untouchable bully and stripped him of every ounce of power in 3 seconds. The hallway vibrated with silence. Students stared, mouths open, phones trembling in their hands. Even Finn's friends stepped back, unsure whether to intervene or retreat. Finn swallowed hard, chest rising and falling too fast. "What the how did you?" he stammered, voice cracking. But Nova didn't answer. She simply lifted the bat slightly. Eyes locked on Finn, expression unreadable but unmistakably dangerous. The storm she had been holding back had officially arrived, and what happened in the moments after that first swing of the bat would become the most talked-about event in Westwood High history, because the next move wasn't Nova's, it was Finn's. The crowd pressed backward as Nova stepped through the cafeteria doors, the bat hanging loosely at her side, her pace steady, her expression unreadable. The cafeteria, always roaring with noise, fell into a chilling, unnatural quiet. Chairs scraped, tables rattled. A path opened instinctively around her, as if the students were making room for a hurricane. Finn staggered in behind her, desperate to regain whatever authority he had left. His face was flushed, eyes wide, bravado leaking out of him like air from a punctured tire. "Don't walk away from me," he shouted, voice cracking. Nova didn't turn, but she did stop. The entire room froze with her. The tension stretched so tight that even the flickering lights above seemed to hesitate. Finn lunged forward, grabbing her arm, and spinning her around with the last scrap of aggression he had left. Bad mistake. In one impossibly fluid motion, Nova caught his wrist, pivoted her body, and yanked him forward by his collar. Finn stumbled, choking on his own breath as she dragged him across the floor, his heels scraping tiles, his hands clawing at hers. Tables toppled. A tray clattered somewhere. A sophomore screamed. The girls nearest the vending machines gasped and stumbled backward, knocking over chairs. The sound echoed like dominoes falling in slow motion. Nova didn't yell. She didn't tremble. She didn't hesitate. She simply pulled Finn closer, close enough that he could see the shift in her eyes, the same storm-dark change Maya had feared. Nova, stop!" Maya pleaded from behind the crowd. But Nova wasn't hearing anything anymore. She raised the bat, not casually, not threateningly, but with the kind of precision and intention that came from years of drill work under a father who believed hesitation was weakness. The muscles in her arm tightened, veins rising beneath her skin like carved lines of intent. Finn's breath hitched, his knees buckled, his voice broke into a childlike whimper. "No, Nova, wait, please." But Nova was already moving. The bat arced upward in a clean, flawless trajectory light, catching on the metal as it rose. The crowd collectively inhaled, hundreds of throats tightening at once. A girl in the back whispered, "She's really gonna do it." A boy near the window muttered, "This is insane." Finn's eyes shut tight. His entire body shook. Nova brought the bat down. Fast, hard, deadly precise. But she stopped it, just centimeters above Finn's head. The impact never came. Instead, the metal hovered in the air, humming with the force of the halted swing. The tension was a physical thing, thick, suffocating, electric. Every student in the room gasped. Finn opened his eyes and saw the bat poised above him. His face crumpled, tears spilling before he could stop them. The school's most feared bully was crying, right there, in front of everyone. And Nova? She hadn't even broken a sweat. Her grip remained steady, her breathing even, her gaze sharp enough to cut the room open. The cafeteria was silent, truly silent, for the first time in years. She leaned down just enough for Finn to hear her whisper, her voice chillingly calm. "I don't need to hit you to break you." Students shivered. Phones recorded every second. Somebody whispered, "Oh my God," as if witnessing a myth come alive. Nova lowered the bat, but her expression didn't soften. The choice she made to stop, to control herself, only amplified the power she held in that moment. She wasn't violent. She was inevitable. Finn collapsed backward, sliding onto the floor, sobbing in front of the entire cafeteria. The crowd stepped even farther away from Nova. Not out of fear, but respect. Plot escalation achieved. But control wasn't victory. Restraint wasn't safety. Because while she had avoided destroying Finn physically, she had humiliated him more deeply than any swing could have. And humiliation has consequences. But Nova didn't know or didn't care that stopping the bat inches from Finn's skull wasn't the end. It was the spark. And now, something far more dangerous was about to ignite. The assistant principal's office smelled like old paperwork and disinfectant. The kind of place where trouble didn't just arrive, it accumulated. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across the room where Nova sat in a stiff plastic chair, her hands resting quietly in her lap. Her shirt was still stained from lunch, her braids slightly disheveled, but her posture stayed straight, controlled. Across from her, Finn slumped into a chair with an ice pack pressed dramatically against his forehead, even though Nova hadn't touched him. He sniffled loudly, milking every bit of pity he could squeeze from the adults hovering around him. The assistant principal, Mr. Rourke, folded his arms. "Finn, are you sure you want to repeat your statement for the record?" Finn nodded eagerly, voice trembling in a perfect imitation of a wounded victim. "She attacked me," he said, pointing a shaky finger at Nova. "Completely unprovoked. I was trying to talk to her calmly, and she just grabbed me and almost smashed my head with a bat." Nova inhaled slowly through her nose, but stayed silent. "Mr." Rourke turned to her. "Nova, do you deny these accusations?" Before she could speak, Finn cut in. "She's dangerous. Did you see the way she looked at me? She's not normal. She just snapped." Two teachers exchanged skeptical glances, but no one spoke. Finn came from a well-connected family, and everyone knew his mother chaired the school legacy funding committee. Accusing Finn of lying wasn't something staff did lightly. Nova finally lifted her head. "I didn't attack him," she said, voice steady. "He pushed me, he grabbed me, he flipped my lunch. Finn slammed his hand onto the desk. "Lies. She's twisting everything." Mr. Rourke shot him a warning look, but only a mild one. A few students who witnessed the fight sat against the wall, waiting to give their statements. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked terrified. Most were glued to their phones, replaying clips they weren't brave enough to show the administration. Nova looked at all of them and realized she might be standing alone, until someone moved. A chair scraped softly against the tile. A student stood, a tall, quiet boy with sandy hair and a baseball jacket still half-zipped. Oliver Hayes. Finn's best friend, his right-hand man on the baseball team, the last person anyone expected to speak for her. Mr. Rourke blinked. "Yes, Oliver, do you have something to add?" Finn's head snapped toward him, eyes wide with panic. Don't." Oliver ignored him. He stepped forward, hands trembling slightly, but his voice was clear. "I saw everything," he said. Finn pushed her first. Twice. He dumped her lunch on purpose. He called her. Oliver swallowed hard. He called her names. Racial ones. The room went silent. Finn shot to his feet. "What the hell are you doing?" Oliver didn't back down. "You crossed the line, man. And you know it." A ripple of disbelief spread across the adults' faces. Nova felt Maya, sitting near the doorway, exhale in relief. Mr. Rourke cleared his throat, suddenly unsure. "Oliver, you're certain of this?" "Yes, sir." His voice didn't waver. "And the bat?" another teacher asked. Oliver hesitated. Everyone leaned forward. "Finn brought it out," Oliver said quietly. "Not Nova. He swung it first. She just defended herself." Finn stared at him, betrayal twisting his features. "You're dead to me, Oliver." Oliver didn't flinch. Nova watched him with an expression that wasn't gratitude, not yet, but recognition. For the first time, someone had stepped into the fire for her. Someone with something to lose. And that changed everything. The assistant principal scribbled something hastily, the doubt now visible on his face. The narrative had cracked. Finn's story wasn't airtight anymore. But this wasn't the twist. Oliver, the teammate everyone assumed would defend Finn blindly, had just shattered the illusion of Finn's innocence, publicly, directly, and irrevocably. And Finn knew he had lost control of the story, but the story was far from over. Because Oliver's testimony was only the first domino to fall, and the next one was much bigger. The principal's office at Westwood High was designed to impress walnut bookshelves, velvet chairs, framed diplomas, and a polished mahogany desk that seemed to glow under the soft lamplight. But to Nova, the room felt like a trap, too quiet, too spotless, too rehearsed. Principal Hargrove sat behind the desk, hands clasped, a thin smile stretched across his face like he'd practiced it in the mirror. His suit was perfectly pressed, his tone perfectly calm. But the tension in the room wasn't calm at all. Finn's mother sat beside him, her pearl necklace resting stiffly against her collarbone. She was the kind of woman who entered a room expecting gravity to shift around her. Her eyes were sharp, cold, and calculating, the kind of gaze that cut without effort. Nova sat across from them, Maya at her side for support. She kept her shoulders square, resisting the instinct to shrink. She had already been humiliated once today, not again. Principal Hargrove cleared his throat. "Nova," he began smoothly, "we appreciate your cooperation during this unfortunate incident." The word unfortunate landed like poison. "We've reviewed the situation carefully," he continued, "and believe the best path forward is for you to accept responsibility for escalating the altercation." Nova's jaw tightened. "I didn't escalate anything." Finn's mother smirked. "Sweetheart, perception matters more than details." Maya shot up in her seat. "She didn't start this." Everyone saw Principal Hargrove raised a hand. "Let's all stay calm. We simply need Nova to sign a statement acknowledging inappropriate conduct so we can keep the school's record clean." He slid a single-page document across the desk. Nova didn't touch it. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Why does your clean record matter more than the truth?" Hargrove exhaled, pretending patience. "Because the media, Nova, the reputation of this institution. One viral video taken out of context can damage us all." There, it was the slip. The mask cracking. Maya narrowed her eyes. But the videos were removed. Within minutes. Why would... "That's irrelevant." Finn's mother cut in sharply. We are talking about your friend's behavior, not random internet glitches. Nova felt the room tightening around her, the pressure to fold pressing against her chest like a weight. She leaned back slowly, studying each face in front of her. The principal pretending neutrality, the mother radiating entitlement, the silent implication that Nova's silence would be rewarded, but her truth punished. Then Nova said softly, "Okay." Principal Hargrove relaxed, relieved. "Good, then please sign." "I said okay," Nova continued, "because if we're basing this on perception, then you should see this." She reached into her backpack, pulled out a small black USB drive, and placed it on the mahogany desk with a soft, precise click. The room went still. Hargrove hesitated. "What is that?" "Every video that was uploaded," Nova said, before they were mysteriously deleted. Finn's mother stiffened. Her fingers twitched. Her eyes sharpened into something predatory. Maya felt it too. She whispered, "Nova, look at her." Nova didn't. She kept her gaze locked on the principal. "Funny how every clip vanished," she said coolly. "Almost like someone with power didn't want people to see what really happened." Hargrove swallowed. "Sometimes platforms auto-flag." "No," Nova said. "They were removed manually. Immediately." She turned her eyes slowly toward Finn's mother. "And I'm guessing it's easier to make videos disappear," Nova said, "when you're the school's largest donor." Silence slammed into the room like a dropped stone. Finn's mother's smile vanished. Her composure flickered. For the first time, she looked unsettled. "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped. "I know enough," Nova replied. "And so does the school board if I choose to send this USB to them." Principal Hargrove paled. Because now the situation wasn't about a cafeteria fight, it was about corruption, nepotism, a system built to protect the powerful exposed by a girl they underestimated. Maya whispered, "Nova, what now?" Nova stood slowly, her shadow falling across the polished desk. "Now," she said, "you decide which is worse, the truth being public, or your cover-up being public." The adults stared at her in stunned silence. Because the moment Nova walked out of that office, the battle lines shifted. This was no longer Nova versus Finn. It was Nova versus the entire institution built to protect him. The school counselor's office was a quiet island tucked behind the main hallway. Soft lighting, pale blue walls, and motivational posters taped carefully to hide the cracks in the paint. It was meant to feel safe, comforting, neutral. But today, the air felt heavy, like the room itself knew secrets too dangerous to whisper. Nova sat on the small couch, Maya beside her, their knees still touching from the tense walk down the hallway. Across from them sat Miss Renford, the school counselor, a woman with kind eyes but a posture that suggested she carried more weight than she was allowed to drop. She folded her hands, exhaled, and set her glasses on the desk. "Nova," she said softly, "I saw the report from the assistant principal. I wanted to speak with you before anything gets finalized." Nova's voice was steady. "The principal wants me to sign a false confession," Maya added. "They're covering for Finn. Again." Miss Renford hesitated, her gaze shifting toward the office door as if confirming they were alone. Then she leaned forward. "You're not imagining it," Nova tensed. "What do you mean?" Miss Renford opened her desk drawer. Slowly, carefully, like she was disarming a trap rather than removing files. She pulled out a small manila folder, edges worn, label torn off long ago. "This shouldn't exist," she murmured. "But I kept it anyway." Maya frowned. "Kept what?" Miss Renford placed the folder on the table between them. "Proof," she whispered, "that you are not the first one Finn has hurt." Nova's breath caught. "The school records show Finn as a model student," Miss Renford continued. "Clean behavior. No disciplinary actions. No complaints." Nova nodded bitterly. "Because they erased everything." Miss Renford looked at her, really looked at her, with the eyes of someone who had watched injustice unfold for too long. "They erased the official files," she confirmed. "But I kept the originals." She opened the folder. Inside were 3 thin reports, each stamped confidential, each with a different student's name, all dating back over the last 2 years. Each described hallway assaults, harassment, threats, racial comments, patterns too clear to ignore. Each ended the same way. Case closed, insufficient evidence. No action taken. Maya covered her mouth. Three different kids, 3 that we know of, Miss Renford said. But none of them stayed long after the incidents. Their families transferred them out quietly. They didn't want to fight a family as powerful as the Archers. Nova felt the anger in her chest sharpen into something colder and more precise. "Why keep these?" she asked quietly. Miss Renford's expression tightened. "Because I knew one day someone would come along who couldn't be silenced. Someone strong enough to fight back even when the system is stacked against them." She slid the folder closer. "And I think that someone is you." Nova stared at the files. 3 students, 3 victims, 3 stories erased. "Miss," Renford continued, voice trembling slightly. "Nova, if you fall, if they crush you the way they crushed them, the next kid won't stand a chance. Finn will keep hurting people, and his mother will keep burying the truth." Maya whispered. "Nova, this is bigger than just you." Miss Renford nodded. "If you walk away now, the cycle continues." She leaned back in her chair with a quiet, exhausted sigh. "If you stand," she said, "others will finally stand with you." The words hit Nova like a spark flaring inside her ribs. She thought of the cafeteria, of Finn's laughter, of Oliver's shaking voice, of the USB on the principal's desk, of the silent witnesses watching, filming, hoping someone would finally fight back. Nova closed the folder gently, as if accepting a responsibility she hadn't asked for, but one she could no longer refuse. "I won't let him hurt anyone else," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was final. Maya swallowed, nodding. "So, what do we do?" Nova stood up, shoulders squared, eyes steady. "We do what no one else has dared to do. We expose him." Miss Renford exhaled shakily, relief and fear tangled together. The hidden files, proof of Finn's violence, had survived the cover-up only because one counselor risked her job to keep them, and now Nova had them. For the first time, Nova wasn't just defending herself. She was preparing to take down an entire family's grip on the school, no matter the cost. The emergency assembly filled the auditorium with a restless, electric tension. Students crowded into the rows, whispering excitedly. Parents sat stiff-backed in the reserved front section. Teachers lined the walls, trying and failing to maintain order. Westwood High hadn't seen this many people gathered voluntarily in years. On stage, under the harsh spotlight, Finn Archer sat with his mother and the principal, polished and poised like royalty, preparing for a coronation rather than a disciplinary meeting. Finn leaned back in his chair, arms folded, wearing that smug, unshakable grin, the one that said money would clean up anything. His mother's pearl necklace gleamed like a badge of influence. The principal wiped sweat from his brow every few seconds. They thought they had already won. The microphone squealed as Principal Hargrove stepped forward. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," he began. "We are here to clarify a recent misunderstanding." A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. Students exchanged glances. Parents looked annoyed. Everyone knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a scandal. Finn smirked. His mother placed a calming hand on his shoulder. "And I assure you," Hargrove continued, "that Westwood High remains committed to fairness and—" The auditorium door opened, and Nova Jordan walked in. The room shifted instantly, like gravity itself tilted. Conversations died. Phones rose like a wave. Even teachers leaned forward, sensing the air change. Nova didn't rush. She didn't look shaken. She walked down the center aisle with calm, measured steps, Maya and Oliver close behind her. Finn's smile faltered. "Miss Jordan," Principal Hargrove stammered, "this is an official proceeding. You were not scheduled to." Nova stepped onto the stage. Without permission, without hesitation. She faced the audience, not the administrators, and pulled a thick envelope from her bag. Then another, and another. Maya placed the USB beside them. Oliver set down the secret files. Gasps erupted. "What is that?" Finn's mother snapped. Nova finally spoke, voice steady as stone. "Evidence." She held up a stack of printed screenshots, the deleted videos, the comments, the timestamps, then the hidden disciplinary reports, then Finn's recorded insults. The room exploded into whispers, shocked, outraged, hungry for the truth that had been buried. Finn shot to his feet. "This is illegal! You can't—" Nova met his eyes, unblinking. "You want to talk about what's illegal?" The crowd murmured louder. Students who once stayed silent now leaned forward, nodding, whispering. Finally, Finn's mother stood, face flushed. "This is a witch hunt. You have no authority here." Nova laid the final file on the table, 3 confidential reports, each describing Finn's past assaults. "We all know who had the power to erase these," she said quietly, "but not anymore." The auditorium erupted. Parents stood, demanding explanations. Teachers whispered fiercely among themselves. Students who once cheered for Finn now turned their backs. The crowd changed sides. Completely. For the first time, Finn looked small, trapped, cornered. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The confidence drained from him like water spilling through cracked glass. All eyes in the auditorium locked on him, waiting. Because with the truth exposed at last, the only question left was simple. What would Finn do now? Fight, deny, or finally break? The afternoon sun spilled across the courtyard like a spotlight waiting for the final act. Students poured out of the auditorium in chaotic clusters, some buzzing with disbelief, others replaying videos they had secretly recorded, everyone talking about the same thing. Finn Archer had finally been exposed. Near the stone fountain at the center of the quad, Finn stood rigid, fists trembling at his sides. His varsity jacket hung lopsided on one shoulder, as if even the fabric no longer wanted to cling to him. His mother was pacing beside him, phone pressed to her ear, barking orders at someone who apparently couldn't fix the situation fast enough. But it was hopeless. Principal Hargrove approached with 2 athletic department officials. Their faces were tight, voices low, avoiding Finn's mother's burning glare as they delivered the news. "Based on today's findings," one said, "the board has voted to suspend Finn indefinitely. And," added the other, "he's removed from the baseball roster effective immediately. The team can't risk the liability." The words hit Finn like a physical blow. "What? No. No!" he shouted. "You can't do that! The season starts next month. That decision is final," the official repeated, already stepping back as if Finn were contagious. Finn lurched toward him. "I am the team. You need me!" Students gathered around the edges of the courtyard, filming from a safe distance. Finn's rage echoed across the space, raw, loud, unraveling. "This is her fault!" he screamed, pointing wildly toward the building where Nova and Maya had exited minutes earlier. "She made everyone turn on me. She faked the evidence. She's lying." But no one was listening. No one believed him. Not anymore. A few baseball players who once followed him like shadows now stood together several feet away, whispering, avoiding eye contact. Even Oliver, quiet Oliver, who had finally spoken up, watched from a distance, with a mix of guilt and grim resolve. Finn's mother grabbed his arm, trying to steady him. "Finn, stop. We can appeal this. We can fight it." But Finn wasn't calming down. "This school owes me," he shouted, voice cracking. "I worked for years. Dad donated. You donated. How can they do this to me?" His mother's expression tightened. "Because they're turning on us. Because someone leaked those files. Someone—" But Finn wasn't listening. He kicked a bench, sending it scraping across the pavement. He punched the air. He screamed curses at the principal, at Oliver, at the universe, anyone but himself. Students recoiled. Some laughed under their breath. A few recorded every second, their phones capturing the collapse of a boy who had ruled them through intimidation and privilege. Finn spun around, red-faced and breathless. "This isn't fair. I didn't do anything wrong." But even he seemed uncertain of the words as they left his lips. The crowd watched with a strange mixture of fear and justice, like witnessing the downfall of a tyrant in real time. Finally, Finn's rage broke into sobs, harsh, humiliated, uncontrollable. He sank onto the pavement, hands in his hair, muttering accusations that no one cared to hear. Nova watched from the far end of the courtyard, partially hidden behind a column. Maya stood beside her, silent, neither smiled, neither gloated, because this wasn't victory. It was exposure. And exposure comes with consequences, some immediate, some much darker. Nova turned away, a heaviness settling in her chest. Finn had fallen, yes. But something about the way his mother stared at Nova from across the quad, cold, calculating, unbroken, made it clear this wasn't over, not even close. Because the punishment Finn received today was only the beginning. The real backlash, the one fueled by power, money, and vengeance, was coming next. The supplemental parent meeting was held in the administrative conference room, a sterile space, with glass walls, metal chairs, and a long table that suddenly felt much too small for the tension vibrating inside it. The superintendent, 2 school board members, the principal, and several legal advisors sat waiting as Finn's mother entered with sharp, clipped steps. Her confidence was thinner today, but not gone. Not yet. Principal Hargrove cleared his throat, posture stiff. "Mrs. Archer, thank you for coming. Given the new evidence, the board has concerns regarding prior interventions involving your son." "Interventions?" she repeated, smiling tightly. "You mean maintaining order? Preventing baseless rumors? Protecting my child?" Superintendent Hale adjusted his glasses. "We mean suppressing student complaints, interfering with electronic records, removing disciplinary documents." A flicker of emotion, annoyance, not fear, crossed her face. "Everything I did," she said coldly, "was to prevent this school from being smeared by troublemakers who look for attention and play the victim." The room stiffened. Mrs. Archer continued, voice dripping with entitlement. "Finn is an athlete, a leader, a pillar of this district. You should be thanking me for ensuring he remained focused. Not attacking me with these outrageous— We're not attacking you," the superintendent cut in. "We're investigating you." Silence. A single, stunned breath escaped Finn's mother before her expression hardened like stone. She folded her arms. "On what grounds?" The board member slid a thin folder across the table. "Miss Renford's preserved files. 3 cases, 3 ignored victims, 3 signatures from administrators who had been pressured to dismiss them, and at the bottom, printed in bold, 'Parental interference confirmed.' Mrs. Archer's lips parted, but no sound came out. Hargrove spoke next, voice lower than before. "Additionally, we have documentation showing that you contacted the district IT team during school hours to request removal of online content involving your son. This violates school policy." Her eyes flashed. "I was protecting my child." "You were obstructing accountability," the superintendent replied. "And compromising student safety," added another board member. The weight of the words pressed into the room like a dropped anchor. Then came the final blow. "The school," Superintendent Hale announced, "is terminating all sponsorship agreements with the Archer family, effective immediately." Mrs. Archer shot to her feet. "You can't do that," she snapped. "My husband and I have funded this district for 6 years. We built your new athletic wing. We appreciate that," Hale said calmly. "But we cannot continue accepting funding tied to unethical influence over disciplinary decisions. The arrangement ends today." The silence afterward felt seismic. For the first time, Mrs. Archer's poise cracked not into humility, but into raw, exposed shock. She looked around the table for support, but every face was turned toward paperwork, notes, or the floor. No allies left. Her voice lowered to a whisper sharpened by fury. "You're making a terrible mistake." "No," the superintendent replied. "We're correcting one." She gathered her purse with trembling hands, spun on her heel, and stormed out of the room, every click of her heels echoing like the final beats of a collapsing empire. Principal Hargrove exhaled shakily. The board exchanged heavy glances. The room felt changed lighter in some corners, heavier in others, because the Archer legacy had just shattered. And for the first time, with the power dynamic cracked open, Nova Jordan finally had the space to speak her truth, unfiltered, unburied, and undeniable. Now, with the system no longer protecting Finn, the spotlight turned to Nova and what she would do next. The auditorium was full again, but this time, there was no anger, no chaos, no tension humming beneath whispered conversations. Only anticipation. Rows of students, teachers, and parents sat quietly, waiting for the next speaker at the student assembly. The stage lights dimmed, and a soft murmur spread through the crowd as Nova Jordan stepped forward. She clasped the sides of the podium, her fingers trembling slightly not from fear, but from the weight of what she was finally ready to say. The spotlight washed over her, illuminating the worn fabric of her jacket, the careful braids pulled over her shoulder, the steady rise and fall of her breath. For a moment, Nova said nothing. Silence spread like ink, thick and expectant. Then, her voice soft but unwavering broke the stillness. "My name is Nova Jordan, and before I came to Westwood High, I went to 3 different schools. Some students shifted in their seats, teachers leaned forward. Maya sat in the front row, eyes already glistening. I left each school for the same reason," Nova continued. "Because I was told to ignore it. Because I was told, it's not that serious. Because when other kids pushed me, mocked me, cornered me, or made comments about my skin, the adults told me to stay quiet so things wouldn't get worse." She paused, swallowing hard, but things always got worse. A ripple of emotion moved through the audience. Even students who weren't usually sympathetic lowered their phones, listening. "In my old schools," Nova said, "I was the girl who didn't speak up, the girl who tried to stay invisible, the girl who didn't want to be a problem." Her voice strengthened, "But being silent never protected me, and it never stopped them." Nova stepped away from the podium for a moment, pacing slowly, calm, deliberate. "When I came here, I promised myself and my dad that I wouldn't fight again, that I wouldn't use what he taught me unless I had no choice." A few students exchanged glances. They had all seen the bad incident. They all knew exactly what she meant. "I didn't want trouble," she said. "I wanted a chance." Her eyes lifted toward the crowd, direct, unshielded. "But then I met Finn." The room tensed, but Nova held up a hand. "This isn't just about him, or me. It's about every person who has ever been bullied, or targeted, or dismissed because of something they can't change. It's about a system that protects the loudest kids, the wealthiest families, the ones who know they'll be believed before they even open their mouths." A quiet gasp echoed from the side. "And I'm standing here now," Nova continued, "because for the first time, someone listened. Someone stood beside me. Someone saved the files. Someone spoke up." Her gaze found Oliver in the crowd. He looked away, embarrassed, but she smiled, soft and grateful. "I'm not here to tell you to fight," she said. "I'm here to tell you that your voice matters even when they try to silence it. Especially then." Her final words fell into the room like a stone into still water, quiet, powerful, irreversible. "You are not alone, and you never were." The auditorium went completely silent. Not a cough, not a whisper, not even the scrape of a chair, just the weight of a truth that had never been spoken on that stage before. For the first time, the entire school truly heard her. But Nova had no idea that by speaking her truth, she had just changed the future for more people than she could ever imagine. 1 week later, Westwood High felt like a different universe. The same hallways, the same lockers, the same echoing bell, but the atmosphere had shifted. It was lighter, sharper, awake. Students walked in clusters, whispering about policy updates and committee meetings instead of Finn's power or the administration's silence. And at the center of this change, though she never asked to be, was Nova Jordan. Posters against bullying and discrimination hung freshly laminated on every hallway board. Teachers paused classes to review new procedures. and for the first time in the school's history, the administration announced the formation of a Student Equity Council open to anyone affected by harassment or discrimination. The memo credited it to recent events, but everyone knew what that meant. Nova stood near her locker, adjusting her books, trying to pretend she didn't feel dozens of eyes on her. Maya leaned against the locker beside her, grinning with quiet pride. "You know they're staring, because they actually respect you now, right?" Maya teased. Nova rolled her eyes. "I didn't do anything heroic. I just survived," loudly. "That's exactly why it mattered," Maya said, nudging her shoulder. Students who had once avoided Nova now approached her with hesitant smiles, shy waves, or whispered thank yous as they passed. Even kids she had never seen before, freshmen, athletes, quiet kids who usually went unnoticed, offered small nods of recognition, as if her courage had unlocked theirs. At lunch, the cafeteria, once a battleground, now buzzed with a new kind of energy. Nova felt it the moment she stepped in. Conversations quieted slightly, not in fear, but in acknowledgement. Oliver lifted his chin in greeting from across the room. Several teachers exchanged approving glances. It was surreal. A group of sophomores approached her table. One of them, a girl with glasses too big for her face, took a deep breath. "Nova, I used to get pushed around by Finn too," she confessed. "I never said anything because I thought nobody would believe me. But when you spoke, it made me feel like maybe someone finally could." Nova's chest tightened. She nodded gently. "I'm glad you're talking now. That's how things change." Behind her, another voice chimed in. "Same here." Then another, and another, until there was a small circle of students who had once been strangers but were now bound together by shared history, a history they were finally allowed to speak aloud. Nova listened quietly, humbled, almost overwhelmed. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't fought for applause. She hadn't demanded transformation. But change came anyway. Because truth has a way of spreading once someone dares to shine a light. Maya nudged her again. "You started something, and it's not stopping anytime soon." Nova exhaled slowly, eyes drifting across the cafeteria, the same room where she had once stood alone, bat raised, the entire school watching. Now, they weren't watching in fear. They were watching with hope. And just when Nova thought she finally understood the ripple effect of her choices, someone unexpected walked into the cafeteria. Every conversation paused, every head turned, because the final surprise, the one Nova never saw coming, was about to change everything once more. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the courtyard as students trickled out of the building, their laughter floating on the warm breeze. Westwood High looked almost peaceful now. Nothing like the battleground it had been just days before. Nova walked slowly across the lawn, her backpack slung over one shoulder, feeling a calm she hadn't known since arriving at this school. The weight of the past weeks didn't vanish, but it settled differently, lighter, steadier, no longer crushing. She didn't expect to see him. But Finn Archer stood beneath the oak tree, near the football bleachers, shoulders hunched, his once bright varsity jacket limp at his sides. There were no friends flanking him now, no teammates, no mother barking orders at administration. Just Finn, smaller, quieter, swallowed by the consequences he once believed could never touch him. Nova paused a few steps away. He looked up. His eyes weren't angry. Not today. They were tired, sunken with sleepless nights, rimmed with the weight of losing everything he thought defined him. For a long moment, neither said a word. Then Finn exhaled shakily. "I guess you won." Nova shook her head gently. "This wasn't a game." Finn looked down at his shoes. "I didn't think any of it mattered. I thought I was just doing what everyone else does, pushing people around, being strong. Hurting people isn't strength," Nova said quietly. "It's just cruelty with excuses." A soft breeze rustled the grass between them. Finn swallowed hard. "My mom says the school board might press charges," he mumbled. "I might have to redo the year. I might lose my scholarship offers." Nova didn't flinch. "Those are consequences, Finn, not revenge." He kicked at a pebble with the tip of his shoe. Everyone hates me now. She held his gaze. They don't hate you. They're finally seeing you. Finn blinked at that like no one had ever said something so simple yet so cutting. Nova stepped closer, her voice steady. I warned you, Finn. He stiffened, but she continued before he could misinterpret the words. I warned you, not to threaten me or push me, she said softly. But because people like you don't realize how much damage you do. How many people you break before someone pushes back. Finn's breath hitched. This isn't about the bat, Nova added. It's about learning the cost of the person you chose to be. He stared at her, stunned not by anger, but by the absence of it. Nova wasn't gloating. She wasn't triumphant. She wasn't here to humiliate him further. She was here to let the chapter close. I'm not here to ruin you, she said. I'm here to make sure you don't ruin anyone else. For the first time in his life, Finn nodded not out of obedience, but understanding. Nova, I'm sorry, he whispered. She didn't say she forgave him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she did offer one small, honest reply. Do better. Finn watched her walk away, the words landing heavier than any punishment the school could have given him. Nova stepped out into the golden light of the setting sun, the sky painted with warm streaks of orange and pink. Maya waved from across the courtyard. Oliver jogged to catch up. A group of underclassmen smiled shyly at her as she passed. Her world was different now, not perfect, not healed, but changed. Because she had spoken. Because she had stood up. Because she had refused to break. And as she glanced back one last time at the boy she had warned, Nova understood something clearly. Her warning wasn't a threat. It was a truth. A journey toward justice had ended, but the stronger, braver Nova who emerged would change Westwood High forever. And that's how one warning turned into the moment an entire school finally woke up. Nova didn't just defend herself. She exposed a system built to protect bullies and silence victims. And whether Finn understood it or not, that bat swing he never saw coming changed more than just his pride. It changed Westwood High forever. Now, I want to hear from you what part of this story shocked you the most. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story pulled you in, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because the next one is even wilder.